Hello everybody. These three examples are to help for the three questions on the midterm that deal with what's coming up next, but that we didn't get to do as a group because we took some extra days in class to work on the midterm review in class. So again, there's only three examples that I'm going to show you today, and if you can do these three examples, you'll be just fine on those three questions on the midterm. So let's get started. Have your chart out that shows the numbers you're responsible for knowing. We're definitely going to use our chart. The title for this section is Solving Power and Root Equations. I'm not going to put an official title on these because we are going to do these notes top to bottom as a group after midterms. This is just three examples. But I want to just frame where this is relative to our learning. So up till now we've only been simplifying. Now we're going to start solving. So here's our first question for the notes. Square root of 4x minus 7 plus 2 equals 5. Notice I put a little stopper on the radical sign because this plus 2 is not under the radical. Take a look at this for a second. I want to ask you, is there something that we could add or subtract to get this started? Well, I see that the radical here is square root of 4x minus 7, and that's locked up under the radical sign. But then I see this plus 2 is outside of the radical. So I'm going to start off by subtracting 2 from both sides. Our goal is to isolate the radical, get it by itself. So I have square root of 4x minus 7 equals 3. As tempting as it might be to now say plus 7, I can't do that because this entire piece is underneath the radical. That's like saying 4x minus 7 all to the 1/2. Until you address the root or the power, you can't touch what's underneath. So we have to ask ourselves, what's the opposite or the inverse operation of taking the square root? The opposite of taking the square root is raising to the second power. So we will square both sides. When we square both sides, this square root and square cancels out, and I'm left with 4x minus 7 equals 3 squared is 9. And notice, no more radical sign. So a quick note, if that had been a cube root, I would need to raise it to the third power, both sides to the third power. If it had been a fourth root, the opposite of a fourth root is raising to the fourth. Here we were undoing a square root, so we raised it to the second power. From here we just finished solving. So we'll add 7 to both sides. We get 4x equals 16. And then to finish it up, we will divide by 4. And we get as an answer x equals 4. For these ones, we will always check our answer. So let's do a quick check. Wherever I see x, I will be putting in a 4. So that's 4 times 4 minus 7. Close it. Plus 2 equals 5. So let's see. This is always going to stay 5. The goal is, what will this simplify to be? So that's the square root of 16 minus 7 plus 2. 16 minus 7 is 9. So I got the square root of 9 plus 2 equals 5. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 equals 5. Check. So this answer worked. Number 2. Two, parenthesis, x plus 1 to the 4/3 minus 8 equals 24. And right now I can just imagine how many people are like, oh my goodness, Miss J, this is crazy. And I'm going to say right now, don't be afraid of it. As crazy as it looks, it's not bad. It really is not. And let's see why. So the first thing we're going to ask ourselves is there something we could add or subtract? My goal is to get this term by itself. I'm trying to isolate that term. So let me ask one more time. Is there something we could add or subtract? Well, I see this minus 8, so I can add 8 to both sides. So now I've got 2, and then x plus 1 to the 4/3 equals 24 plus 8, which is 32. The question still stands. I'm trying to get this by itself. Is there something that you could add or subtract? Nope, we took care of that. But now is there something I could multiply or divide? Well, I see that this is 2 times this whole piece, so I will divide both sides by 2. To get these 2's to cancel out. And now I've got x plus 1 to the 4/3 equals 16. So I've done really nothing too crazy. I added 8 to both sides and I divided by 2 to isolate this term. So now we have to ask ourselves, how do we get rid of this power? We have to remember reciprocals. Any number multiplied by its reciprocal equals 1. So for example, if I had 2/7, the reciprocal of 2/7 is 7/2. Let's see what happens when we multiply straight across. 2 times 7 is 14. 7 times 2 is 14. 14 divided by 14 equals 1. So any number multiplied by its reciprocal equals 1. And that's powerful because I would like this to be gone, but you can't just say, hey, 4/3, disappear. That's not how math works. Mathematically, though, I can force this to be a 1 if I raise both sides to the reciprocal of 4/3. What is the reciprocal of 4/3? Well, I flip the fraction and I get 3/4. So we're going to raise both sides to the 3/4 power. 4/3 times 3/4 is gone. That equals 1. And I'll prove it to you over here. 4/3 times 3/4. Multiply straight across. That's 12. 12 divided by 12, which equals 1. That's why we can cross these out. What's nice about that is now suddenly all I'm left with over here is x plus 1. Now for this part, the 16 to the 3/4. Let's see. Well, we just finished a whole section on simplifying, and a big emphasis when we were simplifying is rewriting with a smaller base. So my question is, how can you rewrite 16 with a smaller base? I see that my root is 4. Remember, this is power, this is root. So is 16 in the x to the 4th column? Pause if you need to go get your chart. I'm hoping that in your chart you see 16 is in the x to the 4th column. And I can rewrite 16 as 2 to the 4th. I didn't actually do any math yet. All I did was rewrite 16 as 2 to the 4th. The reason that's helpful to me is what happens right here? Well, 4 times 3/4, these 4's cancel out, and I'm left with x plus 1 equals 2 to the 3rd. And in case anybody was wondering where or why I was able to do that, 4 is technically 4 divided by 1. So when I do 4 divided by 1 times 3/4, you can see here the 4's will cancel. Or, if you're still not sure, 4 times 3 is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. That's where the 3 came from. And look how nice that is, because I have now x plus 1 equals 8. And to finish this up, I will subtract subtract 1 from both sides. And get x equals 7 as a final answer. All right, let's check the answer real quick. So let's do a check. So I'm just going to rewrite the original. X plus 1 to the 4/3 minus 8 equals 24. So that becomes 2, 7 plus 1 to the 4/3 minus 8 equals 24. And remember, no moving left and right. The goal is that the left will simplify down to be a 24. So that's 7 plus 1 is 8. And I've got the minus 8. I can rewrite 8 with a smaller base. That's 2 to the 3rd to the 4/3 minus 8. These 3's cancel. Or you could say 4 times 3 is 12, divide by 3. And either way, you get 2 to the 4th. 2 to the 4th, that's 4 2's multiplied together. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So I get 2 times 16 minus 8 equals 24. That's 32 minus 8 equals 24. 24 equals 24. On an exam, I would be fine if you showed me up until this step, and then you could actually use your calculator to check this. You would put 2 parentheses 8, close it, caret, in parentheses 4/3 minus 8. And when you enter that into the calculator, it'll come out as 24. It should, if you type it in right. And from there, you could get 24 right away. But being able to do it by hand is important. We need to use our math skills. All right, that's the second one. One more, and we are done. Let's see. Number 3. X minus 4 equals square root 2x. It's not straight. So take a look. When I see this, it's super tempting to say, hey, let me add 4 to both sides, but is that really going to get you anywhere, right? I mean, I have a radical over here. So adding 4, there's nothing I can do. This radical is by itself. So the strategy here is we're going to go straight to getting rid of the radical. This is a square root, so the opposite of a square root is to square both sides. So we will raise both sides to the second power. Remember that this now means 2 of these multiplied together. And this square root and that square canceled. So from here, it's just algebra. Let's multiply this out. X times x is x squared minus 4x plus 16 equals 2x. Combine like terms. And now for solving quadratics, we always get the right side to equal 0, so we can solve. So I will subtract 2x over. get x squared minus 10x plus 16 equals 0. We technically could jump into the quadratic formula, but that's a little heavy-handed. If I can factor, that's my go-to strategy. So let's see, a is 1. Are there two numbers that multiply to 16, a positive 16, and add to negative 10? And the answer is yes. That would be, let's see if I can just put it over here, negative 8 and a negative 2. Negative 8 times negative 2, positive 16. When I add them together, it equals negative 10. So I can factor this as x minus 8, x minus 2 equals 0. From there, I take each of my two factors and I set it equal to 0. And we get x equals 8 and x equals 2. We're going to check both of those answers. So let's check x equals 8 first. So plugging back into the original equation, that'll be 8 minus 4 equals the square root of 2 times 8. The goal is that the left will equal the right. So let's see, 8 minus 4 is 4. Over here, underneath the radical, 2 times 8 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. That worked. Now let's check x equals 2. So I will have 2 minus 4 equals the square root of 2 times 2. 2 minus 4 is a negative 2. This is square root of 4. Uh-oh. Square root of 4 is 2. That is false. This is, when it comes out false like this, some of you may have heard of it, some of you may have not. That is called an extraneous solution, because it came out false. So we actually, because of that, we come over here and we reject this answer. We say that this is extraneous. So the only answer we keep is x equals 8, and we're done. That completes the 3 examples we need to be all set for tomorrow. I would recommend that after you take these notes, rewrite these 3 questions on a blank piece of paper and give them a try start to finish, and you'll be in good shape. Happy studying. Any questions at all, please shoot me what you need help with on Remind. I will be on Remind till about 11 o'clock. All right. See you guys tomorrow.